Having both Bruno Fernandes and Mohamed Salah in your FPL side will stop you from winning FPL. How important is captaincy and should it affect the transfers and team selections that you make? And effective ownership needs to be monitored closely and not ignored if you want to rise up the ranks. My name's Rob, aka FPL Hall, and today we're going to be looking at why Bruno and Salah in your side might not be the best idea. We'll have a breakdown and a little bit of maths to back that up as well. Also, we're going to be talking about captaincy and effective ownership and how important they are. So just how important is effective ownership and captaincy when making decisions regarding your FPL team, and especially now pre-season as you build your squads? Many will say captaincy, of course, is key, and it's worth double points for one of your players every single game week, and it's supposedly one of the most important decisions you make every single week. But how much is your captaincy decision making, especially now during preseason as we build our squads, affecting your transfers, team selections, squad setup, and your squad balance? Effective ownership feels a little bit like a dirty word that we want to ignore, because at the end of the day, players getting points is what matters, right? Wrong. Don't let captaincy rule over your decision making, and don't ignore effective ownership when it comes to decision time. Let's have a look at captaincy, effective ownership, and why Bruno or no Salah is a risky but potentially effective way to start and continue your FPL season. Now, a lot of managers are going to have both Mohamed Salah and Bruno Fernandes for mainly two reasons. The first is they believe that they'll score lots and lots of points. The second reason is they want another secondary captaincy premium option. So when Mohamed Salah has a difficult game, for example, game week 3 against Chelsea, they want to captain Bruno. Understandable. Now, let's look at reason number one, high potential of points. Of course, over the entire season, Bruno and Salah will likely score many points. I'm not even suggesting that that is the case. I'm trying to suggest that having both of them will not help you to win FPL, and I'll get onto the reasons why later on. If you have both Bruno and Salah because you think they'll score many points, but are planning on captaining one of them significantly more than the other, then I believe that's a mistake. This applies right now only to Bruno Fernandes and Mohamed Salah right now. Bruno and Salah are extremely successful FPL players, and they're extremely popular. They're usually the most captain players every single game week, and that's the big issue. They are right now 47% Fernandes, 49.8% owned Salah, respectively, at this moment of recording. This means that their effective ownership every single game week will likely exceed 100%. So if you have both players, your rank will barely rise, if at all, when both do well, and that is down to effective ownership. Having both Bruno and Salah with effective ownership over 100% means that pretty much every single week you've got a 12 million or 12.5 million dead weight in your team every single week holding you back. Yes, in a way, having both of them acts as a type of safety net to catch any significant rank falls if the rest of your team do particularly well. However, due to their effective ownership and popularity, the one that you don't captain is always working against your team. And this double agent is so expensive, meaning points potential from the rest of your team is lower because you have a lot of money tied up in that expensive player who's holding you back. Either both players haul and you still likely lose a little rank unless your expensive captain beats your expensive non-captain, or your captain blanks and the people who didn't go for Bruno and Salah get a rank rise. It's still a small loss if you have both and they both do equally well. It's a big loss if they both bang and you only have one of the two players. But it's a massive win if you choose the right one and then you've used that second person that you don't have, for example, you don't have Bruno, and you've used that money to spread and increase your chances of success around your team. I'll talk a little bit more about player value specifically to your own teams a little bit later with a little bit of maths. So the second reason people will have Salah and Fernandes in their side is they want that secondary premium captaincy option. Just briefly, another dividing strategy within the FPL community is the idea of two rotating goalkeepers, usually two 4.5 million goalkeepers, and they'll usually rotate them based on fixtures, sometimes on form. You'll also find that managers that use this method get frustrated because they have chosen their goalkeeper, they've gone to a relegation threatened side at home, and they've lost. but the one that they benched went to a Champions League side away and got a clean sheet. Now I'm going to apply that analogy when I'm talking about captaincy choices between Bruno and Salah. You can only choose one to be your captain every single game week. I believe most likely people will choose Salah for the first 6 game weeks. If you're planning on having Bruno and Salah because you wish to rotate the captaincy, I'd argue that it's better to just captain one of them pretty much every single week and take a captaincy chance on someone else in your squad for just the 1 or maybe even 2 games over the 6, rather than having a 12 or 12.5 million backup option for captaincy who's losing you rank and having you praying that you nailed the right captaincy choice every single week. If you captain, for example, Mo Salah for game weeks 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and you captain Bruno for game week 3, because Salah has Chelsea. It's a more difficult fixture. I believe Bruno is at Wolves. Bruno is almost a waste every single week except game week 3, and then Salah is the waste. He's the one that's holding you back because of effective ownership. Say you plan on going 50-50. Game week 1, Salah, 2, Bruno, 3, Salah, 4, something like that, 50-50. Then you've got to nail that every single week, because if your non-captain hauls and your captain blanks, that's going to be a chunky rank fall. So because of captaincy, or perhaps just fear or FOMO, or you just love that player, you're keeping a 12 million Bruno or a 12.5 million Salah in your team, with one as captain and the other likely as your vice captain, instead of using the money from one of those 2 players on players who will actually gain you rank. It hurts not having one of them and they do really well. But remember, it's about how your whole team does in a game week, not one player. Having one expensive player do well does not make your game week. Having 2 really expensive players in your team means that you've had to make sacrifices elsewhere, maybe defense or up front. And the key to success is having a great team game week score, not an individual masterpiece. Remember that you need points from the majority of your 11 players. If you have one top high own premium above 100% effective ownership as your captain, then that's safety player, and that's fine. That's not a bad move. If you've got a 12 or 12.5 million vice captain, Bruno or Salah, who basically kills rank no matter what, then you're much better off spreading or using that money elsewhere to improve points potential somewhere else in your team. FPL is a team game and you need points from everywhere. Okay, so let's go into just a little bit of maths now, just to put a little bit of numbers behind this kind of method or style of play. Let's give an example of a simple squad breakdown that plays a 4-4-2. So you have a 4.5 million goalkeeper, a 4.5 million defender, a 5 million defender, a 5.5 million defender, a 7.5 million defender, 12.5 million midfielder, 12 million midfielder, 8.5 million midfielder, 6.5 million midfielder, and up front, 8 million forward, 7.5 million forward. That's 82 million in your starting 11. Let's finish off the bench as well. 4 million goalkeeper, and then 4.5 million subs. That gives you 99.5 million total squad value. Players are priced differently in FPL because of their potential to score FPL points. The higher priced players are who people are most likely to captain due to that points potential. Simple. Midfielders are usually the best captaincy options because they get more from attacking returns than forwards do, and they usually take bonus points if they return well, and they pick up an extra point if they get a clean sheet. Still simple. Now, a disclaimer, each player, game, fixture is different, and there are far too many variables to cover into one simple bit of maths. So if this is just a plan or an outline to follow in regards to player value towards this team example in your team to score potential points. Of course, points potentials vary week on week. It depends on all sorts like fixtures, form, even the weather. Moving on to your player's value towards your team. When looking at your team and your captaincy choice, you want the biggest opportunity of returns, which should, in theory, come from your 12.5 million player, with the second option being your 12 million player. That's Salah and Bruno. Higher prices are supposed to indicate a higher chance of returns. 12.5 million is the highest price, therefore should offer the total best chance of returns for most game weeks. If you take the player's value and divide it by 0.82, because 82 million is our example squad's starting 11 value, then you get their percentage of value and therefore percentage of potential points towards your team. And hopefully that value should correlate towards a better chance of scoring points. 4.5 million goalkeeper divided by 0.82 means that goalkeeper is valued at 5 0.48%. On the screen now, I'll put the list of all the players in our starting 11 and their value towards your FPL squad. Our example squad, the 4-4-2. As you can see, the 12.5 million Salah, his value is worth 15.24% of my team value, and the 12 million Bruno is worth 14.63%. They should have a good chance of getting returns based on that value. However, you only have one, that is your captain, that gets double points. I'd argue that the second captain option, in this case, the 12 million Bruno with a value of or potential of 14.63%, does nothing for your team except lower your rank and takes value and potential from other areas of this team, your goalkeeper, your defenders, and your forwards or other midfielders. If you take out the 12 million Bruno, captain a 12.5 million Salah most weeks, and use that 12 million Bruno money and points potential to increase the rest of your starting 11's value and points potential, then in theory, it gives you a better chance, albeit a riskier one, of success. So what can you do then if you take away Bruno, or if you believe in Bruno, keep him and take away Mo Salah? You might have made a draft previously without one of those two players in your side, and you've sat there thinking, I can't improve this team. I've got all this money in the bank. I don't have Bruno or I don't have Salah, but I don't know where to spend it. Now, first of all, you don't have to spend all of your money. It's not spend all your 100 million, leave nothing in the bank and you win. I've got 1.5 million in the bank right now and I like it. It's quite a bit of money to leave in the bank, but early on, if I need to move quickly without the need to chop, swap or change or rip apart my team, I've got 1.5 million in the bank to quickly act upon without having to destroy what I've built pre-season. Also, the money that you save by selling Bruno or not having Bruno or Salah isn't meant for just those midfield positions. I'm not saying take out Bruno and then just put in one midfielder. You are supposed to use this money to improve your entire team or even your entire squad. So I'm sure you've got a 4.5 million defender that could go up to a 6 million defender. I'm sure you've got maybe a 6.5 million forward that could go up to an 8.5 million forward. Or you've got a goalkeeper you can improve, or you can add some more depth to your sub bench. Or like I've said elsewhere before, selling one of those two players, selling one or not having one of Bruno or Salah, means that you can then have two top range midfielders in that place. Instead of having Bruno or Salah and a 6 or 6.5 million midfielder, you could have, a 9 or 9.5 million midfielder and another 9 or 9.5 million midfielder. An example of how to change this team would be to take out a 12 million Bruno and put in a 10 million Heung-min Son. Son would have a value towards your team of 12.19%, leaving you with 2 million in the bank. You could then take your 6.5 million midfielder like a Buendia or Rafinha with a value of 7.9% to your team and make it into a Kai Havertz who has a 10.3% value to your team. So this gives you two more solid chances of success spread between two players rather than one of your midfielders like Bruno being significantly more weighted and having more pressure to get you those points rather than the case of a 6.5 million midfielder. If you just take out Bruno and keep the 2 million, just consider as well what you can do with that money. 0.5 million is worth 0.6% of value to a team. This starting 11, for example, which is 82 million. So you can upgrade with that 2 million by 0.6% every time. So moving a 4.5 million goalkeeper and a 4.5 million defender, make them both 5 million, or a 5.5 million to a 6 million and so on. Or you can just lump that 2 million, which equates to 2.4% of this team's value, onto one player in your starting 11. You're spreading the value out across your team, which theoretically increases your points potential across your starting 11 and could give you a better chance of overall success rather than just heavily relying on 2 or 3 players in your starting 11. In conclusion, there are many ways or methods to think about when you're building your team, especially now during pre-season, when you're making transfers during the season or when you're choosing your captains. Looking at captaincy options is important, but it should not dictate the transfers you make unless said transfer becomes the captain for that coming game week. Plus, their effective ownership should still make that transfer worthwhile. Speaking of effective ownership, it should be within your thoughts when making your team and transfers decisions, and whilst ultimately you're trying to score the most points, you're not going to win FPL if so many of your starting 11 players have extremely high effective ownership. You have to assess each player's value in terms of money and points potentials within your team, not the whole game and every player individually. objectively. Really look at what each player does within your starting 11 and give most of the team a chance to score points, not just a handful of players. So this is a pretty cold, calculated, risky way to play FPL. There's a high chance of variables. There could be emotional impacts on your own decision making. For example, you get fear of missing out on bandwagons, or you just lose patience or get angry at players who aren't performing to what they should be performing to. I personally started a similar way to this last season and I suffered massively. However, I don't think it was this idea that was the problem. It was the players that I selected to split the money. So last season, I split Mo Salah's money, who started incredibly strong at the start of the season, and I split it with Liverpool defense. I had a really strong starting 11, but the 11 that I chose was far too risky. It wasn't boring enough or solid enough. I didn't know them. I had too many punts at the start of the season, so I've tweaked it a little bit. I'm trying to be a bit colder with players that I know. I'm not getting swayed by Twitter. I'm not getting persuaded by YouTube highlight reels like I did last year with Kai Havertz and Timo Werner. I'm sticking to a plan and being more cold and calculated, and that's the way that I'm going to play it. But finally, please remember that these are just ideas and theoretical ways of FPL thinking. The aim is to open up conversations and debates which in the end hopefully help you to figure something out or aid you in your decision making and your thinking processes as you tinker your way towards FPL success. Thank you very much for watching today's video and giving me your time today. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed it, and comment below any suggestions or ways of thinking that you think could help other people in their decision making process. My name is Rob, aka FPL Hall, and hopefully I'll see you soon.